We are up to Mishnah, Perek Dalid, Mishnah Tet Vav, and we are on the second part of the Mishnah. I think we can all admit readily that last week's topic was way intense. We dealt with the esoteric, the world to come, the concept of reincarnation, justice, even in the face of difficult times. You missed that one. Okay, let's do it again, guys. Let's start again. No, we're definitely not going to do that. Okay, but it is recorded, by the way. These are recorded. We just don't send them out to anybody. They're only, what? You have to find, you need the address. I'll send you the link. But it's only for people that are actually here. It's only for someone that comes that happened to miss this week. We don't put these out because we want people to come and learn and talk and discuss. And as well, we want to limit it to the people that are here so that if people want to ask a question, they still feel that they're interacting with the same group of people that wind up coming, and it's not like we put it out into the ether. Okay. So, we're up to the second part of the Mishnah. Ready? Rabbi Matya ben Charash Omer. Rabbi Matya, the son of Charash, used to say, Have makdim b'shalom kol adam. Be the first b'shalom to greet kol adam, every man. Ve'heve zanav la'arayot, and be a tail to lions. Va'al tihi rosh l'shu'alim, and do not be a head to the foxes. Now, on a surface level, all Rav Matya ben Charash is saying is, say good morning. I must tell you, this Mishnah is pleasurable, is enjoyable on every different level that you think about. Just shut the door behind you. And one second, sorry. Shut the door behind you 1 second, because there's noise in the kitchen. You know, it's signs of life. We have someone in the kitchen making sambusak. This is fantastic. I don't know if we're going to be zochet to get it. It might be for the freezer. Sorry for teasing. Right? All we get is salad. But the point is, Rabotai, we're coming back. You should have seen Shabbat morning in the shul. It was about 150 people here. Wow. And that's still within the 50% capacity that we're allowed. So, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Mechayeh HaMetim. Okay. So Rav Matya ben Charash used to say good morning. Before we get to any levels, before we get to any deeper understanding, before we get to workshop this idea a little bit together, just can we pause for 1 second and realize that the oldest religion in the world, perhaps, still around today, right? Because there was idol worship is older than Judaism, right? It's not older than God, but it's older than Judaism, right? The oldest, most successful, most enduring religion in the world. A religion of spirituality, religion of Bet HaMikdash and Kohen Gadol, and specific symbolically driven, special, stones in the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, and all of the wonderful things of Judaism. And we have a Mishnah that says, say good morning. Can we just bask in that for a minute? That we have a Mishnah telling us to say good morning. Hevi makdim b'shalom kol adam. I cannot stress enough. Judaism, in Jewish, we have in our religion, we have jokes. We like to laugh a little bit, don't we? Right? So who's the traditional butt of all Jewish jokes? The Jewish mother. I'm sorry. I didn't write the rules. Right? I just observe. In every cliche Jewish mother role in the movies, in every cliche joke about a Jewish mother, what does the Jewish mother say? Sorry? Minority is a shithead. You know a good doctor for you, okay? Yeah, is there a doctor in the house? Have I got a daughter for you? Right, sorry. What else? Yeah? What's the classic? Did you eat? Good, another one. But the most famous of all. No, the most famous of all is you don't have time to call your mother. Right, isn't that like in all of the old skits? Would it kill you to call your mother every once in a while? I sit here all day and I worry and worry. I'm not exactly sure which musical they base this figure of the Jewish mother on, right? But I sit here and Tell me you're okay. Isn't that Jewish mother? Call me when you get home. Right? I'm driving home, Mom, in the car. What's the problem? I'm going to wait up until you call me. Text me when you get home. That's the newer generation of Jewish mothers. Right? But this idea, call your mother, that's a mitzvah. It's so infuriating to me. This like great wall of China between spirituality and being a mensch. When being a mensch is the point of spirituality. It's infuriating. It's infuriating to see someone that is obsessed with the tiniest chumrah in matzot. Rav Yisrael Salanta used to yell at his students. He said, I want the most mehudar matzot. I want matzahs with all the chumras, all the stringencies. And they said, Rebbe, which stringencies? And he said, please make sure you don't yell at the almanah who's rolling the dough. You don't yell at the widow who's making a few pennies for her family by rolling the dough. 18 minutes, hurry up, chametz, chametz. You understand? Number one, I always feel it's worthwhile to point this out. Before we get to anything else, have you said good morning? Do you say good morning to people? Mitzvah. Rav Shalom Shwadron tells about the Alter from Slobodka. The Alter from Slobodka once gathered his students round, and he said to them, I want you to imagine there's a man standing outside of the synagogue. You know, back in the day, today we drink milk because we like it in coffee, you know. But back in the day, people drank milk primarily for their health. They needed the nutrients that milk offered. They didn't have vitamins. They didn't have a wide-ranging diet. They couldn't get whatever they wanted. So milk was a huge part of a healthy diet. That's what they needed to have milk. He says, imagine there's a man standing outside the shtibel in town. And he's standing there with a big jug of milk. He's holding it up with the two handles. Okay? And every person that comes to the shul, tired, you know, he pours them a glass of cold milk. They drink the milk, you see, gewaldig. They wake up, they're energized, they have protein and vitamin D and mabarif, whatever else goes into a cup of milk. Some calcium, right? Amazing. Lactose intolerance, everything you get in there. The next guy comes, he quickly puts the cod down, the pitcher of milk, grabs the guy's cup that he just filled up, takes it to the sink, rinses it out with the freezing cold water, comes back, again takes the jug, pours the next guy a cup of milk. Oh, thank you so much. The next guy, one after the next, all day, this guy is sitting there, pouring milk into cups, washing out the cups with the soap. His hands are chapped, his fingers are bleeding. You know, he's sitting there, his muscles are aching from the thing. You look at this guy, says the Alter from Slobodka, if I tell you that there's such a person that did this all day long, what would you say? And the person said, I'd say that probably the story happened in Radin. And probably the person who was pouring the milk for everyone was the Chafetz Chaim, like the Gadol Hador of the last how many generations? And the Alter said, you're right, it probably would be the Chafetz Chaim. But the Gemara in Ketubot on page Kuf Yud Aleph says, Gedola malbin shinaim, greater is he who whitens teeth. What does that mean, whitens teeth? Causes someone to smile, or who smiles to someone, which causes them to smile. If someone smiles at you, you smile back and you're like, what are we doing? What's happening? What's the joke? What am I missing? You know, is it am I the next contestant on The Price is Right? Or who remembers back in the day? What was the video camera when they used to catch you on the, candid camera. Today, it's called stalking. But back then, it was called candid camera. Now you get 25 years to life for candid camera, okay? But can you smile? You're on candid camera. Someone smiles, you're looking already, what's going on? What? But you're already smiling because someone else smiled and your body tells you to smile back. A baby who has no cognitive learning, they've never been taught anything. You smile at a baby, what does baby do? Smile back. You make an angry face at the baby starts crying. They have not learned anything. They have no experience in the world. No one has ever slapped them, but they are able to tell intuitively and mimic and respond in kind to what you're putting out to them. So the Gemara says in Ketubot on page 111, that's a way to remember it, Kuf Yud Aleph, Gidola Malbin Shenaim. Greater is someone who causes someone to smile from someone who pours milk. Literally the example we gave. A person who pours milk every day, his muscles are aching. It costs him a lot of money. He's buying, jug after jug after jug of milk. You could do this for free, and it doesn't hurt. And the only time smiling hurts your face is when you get married, or when you have a bar mitzvah, and you have to do that for 17 hours because the photographer needs to take pictures of you and your husband and your father-in-law, and you and your husband and your mother-in-law, and then you and your husband and your father-in-law and your mother-in-law, and your father. And my favorite though, after my daughter's wedding, was to see the sheer volume of pictures that the photographer took of my daughter with her dress. Not my daughter in her dress, that I understand, but my daughter with her dress. And then all of the sisters surrounding the dress, as if this dress has become one of the members of our family. They were looking with such love and with such adoration. I kind of felt, to me, I want one day to find someone who looks at me the way my daughters were looking at this. It's amazing, That day your smile hurts, but other than that, a smile is painless. Not only that, psychologists tell us that the very act of smiling, even if it's a faked smile, sends endorphins to the brain and changes your brain. So when we talk about this idea about what you can do for someone else, we also simultaneously have to talk about what you are doing for yourself. We'll talk a little bit more about this as we go. But I wanted to just put down, first of all, the Alta from Slobodka. You saw someone doing that, you were like, wow, what a tzaddik. You could be that tzaddik. You could do that with nothing, with no effort. What does it cost? Yes?
My husband everybody, he smiles at everybody, and when we're walking in the street and I do it, they don't answer me. What's the story?
I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Okay. Stay tuned. Same bat time, same bat channel.
One of those things we really miss with a mask. We're missing out on the smiles.
Yeah, we're missing out on the smiles. You have the mask. I actually wanted to, by the way. I found a mask for this specific purpose. I found a mask that has a smile on it. You could actually upload a picture of your face, and they print the bottom half of your face on the mask. And then they could let you actually see what it looks like before you order it. And I put it on. It looks like I'm an axe murderer. I'm not gonna lie. Because when you smile and you do this, that feels nice. But when you have that's psychotic. Okay? You feel like you're about to be murdered. Okay? Now, so let's look at this idea. Heve makdim b'shalom l'chol adam. Where do we find this idea already in the Torah? Yes.
Oh no, sorry.
That was just
up there.
You were telling me I was number one.
It's like me to win.
Okay. Okay. Now, right? Where do we find this idea in the Torah? This concept. Excellent. That's a Mishnah. Not in the Torah. That's actually a Mishnah in Pirke Abot. So it doesn't take precedence over this one. Yes? Yes. If you want, you already raised your hand earlier, so you could just cut in. You have a freebie. Yeah. Do we see there that he greeted them before they greeted him necessarily? Well, he runs towards them, so I guess that would indicate it. Okay. That's good. Good. I want something a little bit more specific. Yes? You're going to say the same thing. Okay. So you guys are on Team Avraham. Okay. I'm for this, like Rav Shalom Shwadron, on Team Yosef. The Pasuk says that Yosef, Yosef has the most difficult life. Just if, when you get these letters, orphan who lost his father, is now trying to get married, breaks your heart, forward this to 8 more people or you'll die tonight. You know, all these lovely messages that you get on WhatsApp, and don't break the chain. So Yosef could have run a really effective tzedakah campaign. His mother dies when he's a child. His brothers hate him from the time he's a child. He then gets thrown in a pit, sold as a slave, thrown in prison for a crime he doesn't commit. This guy's life, it just never looks up. So at every point in his life is getting progressively worse, right? It never at one point gets better. You know when they tell you it gets better? It doesn't. At least not if you're Yosef. He's now in prison already for a crime that he is innocent from. How long? 10 years. 10 years in that prison. What do you think Yosef's spirit looks like? Chewed up and spit out, right? And the pasuk says, and it was in the morning, and Yosef notices the face of the Sar HaMashkim, of his fellow prisoners, the inmates. And he says to them, Madua nafelu penechem hayom. Why have your faces fallen today? Literally the way we would say it, why the long face? The Ba'alei Musar say, number one, you see from this, that Yosef was able, even in the worst of circumstances, to be focused and to be cognizant of the emotional state of another. And not another tzaddik, and not his wife, and not his children, of another prisoner who wasn't Jewish. At that stage, I'd imagine Yosef to be a robot with no emotion, the most bitter, cynical, angry, negative person in the world. The person that if he gets out, you know he's just going to kill someone and get back in. Madua nafelu penechem. What's wrong? How can I help? Fascinating. But then the Ba'alei Musar go one step further. Because you know what? We all have nice moments, don't we? Moments when the terrible people that we really are eclipsed by the momentary tzaddik. No? That one day when you just feel so bad for the homeless person, you actually give them something significant. You give them your food. The moment where you go and help someone who needs your help, even though it takes a lot out of you. You go out of your way to drop them 15 or 20 blocks to their house because it's cold. There are moments when we do that. But say the Ba'alei Musar, that's not what happened. Listen to the words that Yosef says. Not madua nafelu penechem. Why the long face? Yosef says, madua nafelu penechem hayom. Why the long face today? In order to notice the long face today, Yosef would have had to have noticed their faces every day to be able to draw the comparison. Now, again, I want you to understand this, because this to me is the most beautiful thing ever. Yosef's life has been one tragedy after the next. These guys are government officials. They don't know what's going to happen to them. It's not like they have a death penalty hanging over their head. They're just in prison. In fact, they just got there. Yosef's situation is so much worse than theirs. What would most of us say? Get over it, man. Do you know what I've had to deal with? Oh, boo-hoo, you're in prison for 3 days. Oh, you had a bad dream? Cry me a river. It wasn't like anything bad had happened. The only reason why they were perturbed, they were upset, they were annoyed, the only reason why was because they had a bad dream. The level of Yosef's sensitivity was enough to pick up long face from bad dream. Can we appreciate that for 1 second? Rav Matya ben Charash does not say good morning. He says say good morning first. I was sharing the other day about my dad. My dad noticed he was driving to shul, and as he's driving to shul, there's this guy, a non-Jewish guy, in Deal jogging. Anyway, as he passes the guy yells out, "Good morning." That's the kind of town Deal is. In Manhattan, if someone yells out, "Good morning," you run faster. You're not fooling me. Right? Anyway, the second day again, my father's driving. The guy was out on his same hour, morning run. "Good morning." My father was very, very bothered. Very, very annoyed. He said, "How could it be that this non-Jewish person twice already beat me to a good morning? When I have the Mishnah and I have the mitzvah of being the first." The Gemara says about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, just so we understand, all of the great Tanaim that followed in the time of the Mishnah, they were all students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. All of them. He was the leader of the Jewish people. He was the leader of the Jewish people during the time of the destruction of the temple. He was running the city of Jerusalem when they actually destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. He was the one that allowed for the safe passage to Yavne, for the saving of the family of Rabban Gamliel. He was the one who risked his life to go out to speak to Vespasian, to Aspasianus Caesar, right? Amazing. This is the man. Says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, "Miyamai, in my life, lo hekdimani, a person never beat me to good morning, to hello, good afternoon, to good evening. Never. In my life. Ve'afilu nochri shebashuk." And even a non-Jewish person in the marketplace. This is not a nice thing you do for other rabbis or for dignitaries. It's not a nice thing you do for leaders of state and prime ministers. It's another human being. There's a human being should never beat you to good morning. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. Is that not amazing? In his life. I'm so happy for Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai that I was not alive when he lived. Because I'm the type of guy that if I heard him say that, would hide in a bush just to ruin it for him. The chutzpah in me, it's just too much. I don't know, I would have ruined the whole lifetime thing for Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. Good morning! Hazid, he has a heart attack and dies because of me. So my father, the third day, set out earlier than normal to shul. And he's driving around in his car back to Stockerville, right? Trying to find this jogger. And finally he sees him in the distance. My father guns it, and before he even makes it to the guy, rolls down the window and yells out, "Good morning!" What is this idea of being makdim shalom b'chol? I want to say good morning, say good morning. Who cares if you said it first or second? Are you less of a person because you said it second? So I think the end of the line in the Mishnah is really the point of the beginning of the line in the Mishnah. Heve makdim b'shalom kol adam. When I say good morning after you say good morning, I have to do that not to be rude. The second person who says good morning is not the same as the first. I'll give you an example in maybe perhaps a parallel opposite case. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz was very, very clever Talmid Chacham, but he was clever when he was already a boy. And as he's walking down the street to school one day, another kid comes up and slaps him across the face. For no reason. Reb Chaim walks up to the guy and he slaps him twice. Bam, bam. And the kid said, as only yeshiva boys would, "You want to slap me once, fine. But why'd you slap me twice?" And Rav Chaim said, "I slapped you once for slapping me in the face. And I slapped you the second time because you started. One only makes it even. But if you didn't slap me, we wouldn't have to be here. I don't want to be one up. Even at 1-up, I still have a slap on my face. I'm slapping you for that. It's the parallel opposite here. When I say good morning and you say good morning back, we both said good morning. But I'm the one that made your good morning happen. You're not the one that made mine happen. This is the concept. And I think perhaps that's really what Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai means. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai doesn't mean that there wasn't a chutzpahdik, Shlomo Farchi, in his lifetime who ever tried to beat him to Shalom Aleichem. Maybe someone hid in a bush. Maybe someone yelled at him good morning. But Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai is saying about his second good morning that my second good morning was always a first good morning. Maybe once the guy got there first, but it's not that without his good morning, I wouldn't have said it. Saying good morning before someone else says good morning says that you value them. And I think it's especially so when there's a difference in level. Older, younger, smarter, less smart, more successful, less successful. When someone who is of a lower stature, whether it's imagined or realistic, says good morning to someone who's above them, and then that person responds, the person doesn't know if you actually value them and care enough to be able to smile to them or to ask them how their day is going. They don't know. And I think to myself, if someone said good morning to you, would you say good morning back? Yes. How much more valuable would it be to him if you said good morning first? So just say it first. You can say it anyway. This way of thinking changes the way you view the world. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai says, I never gave a second good morning in my life, even if I happened to be second. My second good morning was also a first good morning. I remember reading a story about Rav Aaron, I think it's Forced in Israel. Gets into a cab, good evening. You know, the cab drops him off after this long journey and he says, how much for the ride? And the cabbie says, it's free. He said, free? Why? He says, because I was waiting. When I got in the cab this morning, I said to myself, I want to see if there's someone who looks me in the eye, at least in the rearview mirror, and tells me good morning. He says, and nobody did. And no one said good afternoon. And until your good night, no one looked me in the eye and told me to have a good day, or told me that they hoped, hope everything goes well. Have a great weekend. You were the first. He says, and I almost lost my faith in humanity, and you restored it. That's worth more than the cab fare. Take it for free. A couple weeks later, there's a phone call in this rabbi, Rabbi Aaron Forst's house. One of the children picks up the phone, and he says, hello, and the guy says, hi, my name is Chaim. Can I speak to your father? He says, Chaim who? He says, Chaim the cab driver. He says, oh, did something happen? Did we leave something in the cab? Did we not? No, he says, no. He says, I'm still moved by the good night that your father gave me, and I just want to hear the smile in his voice again. You can have a smile in your voice. You can have a makdim shalom. Good morning, good morning. Or good morning, good morning! You could be makdim shalom, where the shalom, and I think that's the word. Makdim means that it steps forward, that it's not hanging back. And the person doesn't need to be religious, doesn't need to be of the same faith, doesn't need to be of the same stature. It's kol adam. That's indicated by the fact that you go first, that you're not waiting. It's not because you don't want to be rude, it's because you want to do it. You know, one of the most famous stories, which annoys me to no end. First I'll tell you the story, and then maybe we'll see if you guys can guess why it annoys me. There was a meat packing plant, I think it was in Atlanta. And every day the mashgiach would come in the morning and he'd go through all of the shechita, check the chickens, the cows, etc., the fridges, the freezers, make sure that everything was as it was supposed to be, marked properly. The stuff that was non-kosher was sent to be sold to non-Jewish abattoirs or butchers, right? And each time the guy would come in, he said good morning, and every night when he would leave, he'd say good night. One day the rabbi goes into the plant. He's, running around doing all the various things. It's getting almost 6 o'clock, time to go. And he just needs to finish the last thing, and he goes into the walk-in freezer, and he's checking the packages. After 2-3 minutes, he's finished. He goes to the door, he pushes the door has locked. He's stuck in a freezer. He checks his watch. He sees it's 1 or 2 minutes to 6. He knows that at 6 o'clock they shut the plant down, everyone goes home, and he's dead. He will wake up in the morning, frozen solid like one of these slabs of beef. He's banging and banging on the door, screaming. 6:05, he's already starting to feel his fingers and his extremities, go turn blue. And he's trying to huddle, but there's nothing in there to keep warm. Everything is as cold as everything else. And he's sitting there shivering, shaking. And at roughly 6:10, 10 minutes after closing time, 15 minutes after closing time, the rabbi realizes it's over. As he's leaving every day, he sees that they're shutting the lights off and everyone's going. The guard packs up his stuff and leaves with him. There's no chance that that anyone's going to find him. He says his vidui. At about 6:20, he can hear some sounds in the hallway, and he starts banging on the door. And he can hear from the outside, "Rabbi, Rabbi, Rabbi," until finally the guard opens the door, and he practically has to carry the rabbi outside and rub his arms and legs and his feet and his toes and his hands and his ears to get circulation back into his body. And slowly but surely the rabbi thaws out, and they've saved his life. And when the rabbi can finally speak again, he asks the guard, he says, "How did you know that I was in the freezer?" And the guard said, "Because there's never a day that you don't say good morning when you come and good evening when you leave. And tonight, I didn't get a good evening." Saved his life. Why does this story annoy me so much? If you know me well, you'll know. No. That's a very Jewish thing, by the way. I've been in here 20 minutes. Similar. So, well, how come no one else is saying good morning and good night? But I'm a little less judgy. So it's not about nailing the other guys. What a little bit annoys me about the story is that it's,
Selfish, like he didn't get his good night.
Sorry?
It has a selfish undertone that he just couldn't leave without getting his good night.
Is that what happened? Or did he mean that he didn't get it so he realized the rabbi hadn't left? I don't know. I'm judging him favorably. What annoys me about the story is that it has a good ending. Like it's only a story that we heard about because he didn't die from frostbite in a freezer. That's not the story. The story is not that the good evening saved his life. That's the annoying part of the story. That all of us were like, oh my gosh, and it saved his life. Even if it didn't save his life. The story is that a man says good morning and good evening to everyone he meets every day, every night. And he's not worried only about the kashrut of the meat. He's worried about the kashrut of his appearance, of the way people relate to him in his role as a religious Jew. That's the story. Happens to be, right? Like the pasuk says, Shomer Adonai et yireav, God guards those who fear him. Happens to be. That's not the story. That shouldn't be the story. We should be Magdim Shalom Mechol Adam, because if you look at a human being, you should be able to see, if you look hard enough, you should be able to see a tiny fragment, a shard of Ribono Shel Olam, of the God who created this universe, of the God that you serve, that you worship, that you pray to. You should be able to see that in them. In fact, our rabbis tell us that the word shalom, from shalom aleichem, shalom is one of the names of Hashem. Did you know that? I found that fascinating. So part of why you say shalom to someone, you recognize them, you wish peace upon them, is because you're recognizing the peace or the portion of God in them. And let me add to that, This idea of extending a greeting, of showing a smile, of showing someone that you're interested in them, that they matter to you. The word shalom, it means peace. But what else does the word shalom mean in its root? Shalem means something which is complete, which is whole. Al pi Kabbalah, the Zohar teaches us that when God created Adam Harishon, He created within Adam the entire soul of every living being. In Adam and Eve, like the Pasuk says, Vihi hayeta em kol chai. She was the mother of every living thing. What is the Pasuk trying to tell you? Obviously, we know there are no other humans. She's the wife of the guy that you made first. Obviously, she's the mom and the mother-in-law of everybody. And the grandma, right? We get that. What's the Pasuk communicating? Vihi hayeta em kol chai. It means that every strand and every flavor and every type of human being was contained within Chava. When they left Gan Eden, this neshama that was encompassing of all humanity, it was broken into 1,000, into 1 trillion pieces. And these fragments of godliness, they are found in each and every human being that ever walked the planet. When there is shalom between human beings, then we are shalem, we are reuniting this greater than all of us human soul. It's why the job of the Jew is not only to do his mitzvot, but to ensure that he lifts all of those Jews around him. And it is the job of all those Jews around them to lift up the souls and raise the consciousness of an entire world, to be ner lagoyim, to be a light unto the nations, to bring everyone together. That is the job of what Am Yisrael is supposed to do. But oftentimes, the person who's supposed to bring everyone together is mistaken for the person who's trying to be in charge of everybody. And part of the reason why we are so hated is because people misunderstand that role. Very similar to what happened to Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef's dream was not to rule over them, but to bring them together. To be a unifying force between all of the brothers. Think about this concept when you smile at someone. That you are bringing your soul and their soul together. That you're creating a tiny bit of shlemut, of perfection in the world. You found 2 puzzle pieces that fit together. That's what you're doing when you say good morning. And let's go back to your question, Chaya. Do you know why people are not smiling at you?
No, they don't answer. I say hello.
Or they don't answer?
He says good morning, hello. They go good morning, hello. I say it, they go ahead.
Do you want to know why they answer him and they don't answer you? 2 reasons. Two reasons. Answer number 1, you need to raise the volume of your voice. Especially with a mask, odds are that a lot of people just don't hear you. And you know what? If they're in New York and they think that they thought that they heard you say good morning, they say, nah, I'm probably dreaming. So maybe it needs to be a little bit louder, okay? That's number 1, technical nikuda. But I think there's another nikuda. Who taught you to say good morning all the time? Who'd you learn it from?
Parents.
Sorry? Your parents. You see your husband doing it, you see your parents doing it. Some people say good morning as a function of what they have been taught. And some people say good morning from their kishkas. You have to say good morning from your kishkas. And if you're Sephardic and you don't know what kishka is, thank the heavens, because kishka is one of the most vile things you could ever imagine eating. Kishka is literally the intestine of an animal. Now, what we eat is some sort of fake version, that is made, I don't even know why, by the way. Could you imagine, who is the brain, the genius behind the guy that says, you know what, here's a nauseous food that looks like a small intestine. I know, why don't we make a vegetarian version and make it look like the original, because the original looks so delicious as this intestinal tube. And you know what? If we wrap it in plastic in just the right way, it might actually look the same as the intestines of the animal. This is a failure in marketing.
But it's very
It's very delicious, by the way. Vegetarian kishka. I'm here for the vegetarian kishka. Real kishka, Shema Yisrael. I ate it once. I was like, I thought it didn't taste so bad, but then I thought for 1 second of what I was eating, and I was like, ow! I'll try anything once. Even sweetbreads. I'll try everything once. Try sweetbreads. And then I realized there's a reason why they don't tell you what it is that you're eating. I actually was like, oh, what's sweetbread? Is it gluten-free? I thought it was some sort of donut, right? And then I was surprised, and then I ate it, and then they told me what it was, and that was it for that. But you have to say good morning from your kishkas, which means that you have to drum up inside of you care and concern for a random stranger. Love for a random stranger. When you say good morning from there, then they respond. Why? Kemayim panim el panim, like water which reflects a face. Ken lev ha'adam la'adam. So too is the heart of a person to another. We can tell the language that the other person's heart is speaking. Yes?
Rabbi, I didn't understand. Why were you so annoyed with this story when you said it annoyed you?
Ironically, it annoyed me because his life was saved. And that's why it's a story. It's a story because his life was saved. That's not the story. Sorry. You know what that's like? That's like saying someone was kind their whole life and they helped every old lady across the street and they helped people pay off their mortgage and they sent people to school and they smiled at everyone and they did everything wonderful. And in the end of their life, they won the lottery. That's not the story. It's nice that they won the lottery. But if you have people doing it because, you know what, maybe if I do that, I win the lottery, then you've undermined. If you say good morning so you don't get locked in a freezer, then you don't care about anybody. You just care about you. Okay, let's carry on, because I think the Mishnah is really communicating this idea in such a beautiful way. The Mishnah says, Veheve zanav la'arayot. Be a tail to lions, ve'al tehi rosh leshu'alim. And do not be a head to the foxes. What is this Mishnah telling you? This is National Geographic all of a sudden? Ma kore po? What's happening here?
The foxes are cunning.
Okay.
So it's better to be with a lion. He's like, it's better, you should attach yourself to strong people rather than to somebody who's like cunning, and because you end up being affected by the people that you attach yourself to.
So, I think you're speaking to one point here, but not necessarily to the other. You're speaking to why lions are better than foxes. But you're not speaking to the fact that the Mishnah talks about being a tail to one and a head to the other.
Because even if you, let's say you could be a great, you could be like this popular person with a fox, but what are you really gaining? It's like the fox, he's not a great person anyway.
Fox is really clever.
Right.
And what's the value of the fox being clever? It succeeds. It gets the food that it needs. It outsmarts.
It's very sneaky.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Anyone want to add to that? So better to be a tail to lion than to be a head to foxes, which are cunning. What's the midah of a lion? Strength, courage, correct? The nature of a fox is cunning. Why has that evolved, so to speak, into the fox's lexicon?
One uses its body, one uses its mind.
Why does one use its body and one use its mind? It's very convenient for a lion to use its strength.
He has.
Because he has it.
It's given.
He has it, right? He's using what he was given. The lion is using his strength and his courage. The fox has to rely on his cunning, tricking the animals. I'm obsessed with nature. Chazal tell us that a person should always look at the nature of the world, at the planets, at the cosmos, at the chokhmah, the wisdom in our creation, in order to be able to see and be convinced of the nature of the presence of Hashem in our world. So if you're not watching nature documentaries, then you're missing out. There's something that I just saw only a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago with my wife, blew my mind. It was done by, I don't know, one of these companies, National Geographic or BBC or whatever. They finally developed technology that allows them to shoot video at night. Not night vision, like the green thing walking around in the black. They have the capacity and the computer power to turn that night shot into a shot that looks exactly as if it was day. That is the power of these cameras. Why is that important? Because up until now, the only life of an animal we could see was the life of the animal out in the open, in the daylight. But what does the animal do under the cover of night? And suddenly they found out things about animals that they never knew, because they never did it during the day. And Ari has the strength and courage to face up to what he is at any time. The nature of a fox is the fact that it's cunning, that it's capable of presenting itself as one thing, but actually behind closed doors, or when they catch him with the cameras at night, is a very different being. Our Chazal are littered with mishalim of the fox trying to fool the fish to come out of water or other such endeavors or exploits. What is the Mishnah communicating to us? To be a zanav la'arayot. I thought that this was beautiful. If there's one area on the lion that has no strength, what area is it? It's the tail. Where does the cunning of a fox reside? His head. Says the Mishnah, even the strength in the tail of a lion is more preferable than all of the wisdom and the cunning in the head of the fox. Why? Can anyone figure out why? It's more honest. I don't know if it's pure. They're both acting with their nature. There's emet. Strength and courage is emet. It is what it is. It faces what it faces. It understands the nature of things as the way they are. And even if it's going to snow in 2 days, it's strong enough to deal with that.
I'll just shovel out again.
Right?
No, I just shovel.
There's emet in the lion. And even if you're just the tail of a lion, even if you're only kind of learning to deal with that strength and with that courage, that's also enough. The minute a person feels like they don't have enough strength and courage, what do? They start to misrepresent themselves. Rav Matya ben Charash is teaching us this law because the first law and the second law go in tandem. He says, Hevi makdim b'shalom l'chol adam. Say shalom first. Extend peace first. Shalom means hello, but it also means peace. One of my favorite pisukim that we say actually as well in the tefillah. It says, Adonai oz le'amo yiten. God grants his people oz. What does oz mean? Strength, bravery. Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. God blesses his people with strength. Why in the world, with peace, why in the world are we putting these two things together? Strength and peace, one would imagine, are opposites to one another. And the answer is that in fact, they work hand in hand. It's the weakest of people who cannot figure out a way to make peace. Because they're always trying to be cunning and figure out how to manipulate the situation, how to get the most out of every possible, deal and argument. And in every situation, you never know what they're thinking and what's up their sleeve. And if you say yes to this, you're not sure what the next thing they're going to ask for, or if the person's going to use that against you, right? It takes a boldness, a oz, a strength. Oz also means not just strength and courage. Oz could also come from the root of the word az, which means that a person is brazen. Rav Matya ben Charash is tackling this issue from two sides. He's really asking not a question of your, morning salutations. Rav Matya ben Charash is asking, how do we look at people? You have some people, we all know some of us are some, who look at everything and every situation in the world as an opportunity to be milked. What can I get from this person? What can this person do for me? What can this person give me? We often are not honest enough to admit that to ourselves. We're not. But if you study your patterns, oftentimes, you'll see it emerging. You know what a really great way of figuring out which one you are? Are you a person who seeks to manipulate the world and get everything from people? Or are you a person who sees everybody as someone to be given to? The question is, how you say hello to people. Watch people say hello to the richest guy in shul. It's depressing. It's depressing. Watch the ani who's collecting at the door, who says good morning, and people are like, I'm busy. Good morning, I need to run. Because I know that good morning might have a little price tag attached to it. So Rav Matya ben Charash is trying to help us have a different approach to human beings, to understand our place in the circle of life in a little bit of a different way. That's what this Mishnah is demanding of us. Heveh zanav la'arayot. A lot of people feel that, it's easy for a guy who has everything, a woman who has everything. She has the friends, she has the confidence, she has that marriage, she has those kids, she's got that life situation. It's easy for her to be nice to everybody because life was nice to her. But me, I have a more difficult life. I have a more difficult situation. It's harder for me. On that specific point, says the Mishnah, Heveh zanav la'arayot. So you don't have the strength and courage that living the life of a lion gives you? Even if all you are is the tail of the lion, even if you're just hanging out with enough lions to try and mimic their behavior patterns, be strong and courageous with yourself. Don't feel like your life is going to be bad unless you figure out how to milk everyone around you. That oz, that chutzpah, that courage actually helps a person not feel the need to try and manage every aspect of life, manage every relationship. Yeh mashi yeh, what will be, will be. It helps you be agendaless. I'll give you an interesting example. As a rabbi that runs a synagogue, an organization, you have responsibilities. You have to raise money. You need to, to run the programs. You need to pay salaries for the staff. You have to do it. It's my least favorite part of the job. But one of the things I decided to do in London was I decided to do a gala dinner. And here's what I told the people that were my donors. I said to them, listen, I don't ever want to ask you for money because I don't want to ruin our relationship. I don't want you to think when I call that I'm calling you because I need a donation. I don't want you to think that I'm taking your call because you gave me a donation. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. Instead of me ever asking you for money, I'll invite you to the dinner, you'll give what you'll give at the dinner, and then I'll never ask you. So you'll never need to think that, and you'll never need to wonder, and our relationship can be pure. This was the way. Now everybody has their own thing. I'm not judging any rabbis or educators or Jewish staff or Jewish organizations. How many people have told me over the years, I never get a phone call, I only get a phone call for that. It makes people cynical. It makes people feel used. They get it. And by the way, it's not only people that you take donations from that feel used, it's family members too. You know the famous line, "Oh, Daddy, I love you, Dad. What do you need?
What do you want?
What do you want?" Right? Why is the father responding like that? Huh?
Maybe they don't have another relationship, that's it.
This is when you call me, let's be honest. I want to share with you something heartbreaking. I was on a trip to Poland, okay? And, you know, there's something about the things you see over there that really wake up a streak of strength and courage in a person. Because you really get to remember what's important about life and what's stupid, like what's unimportant. So one of the exercises we do before Shabbat is we take them to a very difficult place to visit. A place which is the burial site of 800 children. And we talk to them about life, about the value of life, about the value of parents, about the power and the importance and how valuable that relationship is. And we talk to them about taking it for granted. And we ask them to sit down and write a letter to their parents. Some of them write letters, they bring it home. Some of them write on their phones and they email it. Anyway, we wrote the people writing the letter on the bus the whole way home. We go straight from there to Shabbat. We have a beautiful Shabbat. And it's after Shabbat, and now it's time to go do Havdalah. So I'm gathering all the kids together, all the students, to go to the bus. And there's one girl sitting on the floor in the hallway crying. I said, "What's the matter?" She was so distraught, she couldn't speak. So she just handed me her phone. And I see this letter that she wrote to her mother, which is just like the most beautiful letter that she could write, about how much she loves her and how much she values her and why she appreciates everything that she does. Really spectacular, beautiful, sensitive letter. And then the letter she came back to, the response after she turned the phone on after Shabbat, her mother wrote, "I can't believe it. You went to Poland and you got drunk." She's crying, "I can't believe it. I opened myself up. My mother and I, we don't have the best relationship. No. And this is what I do, and this is what she says, and what kind of a horrible person, and And I said, pause. When was the last message you sent like this to your mom? She said, never. I said, so why are you surprised that she thinks you're drunk? Yeah. Zanav la'arayot. A lot of the times the reason why we don't extend ourselves to others is because we're too afraid to be hurt. Last time I asked and he didn't help. I'm not going to ask again and make him think that I'm useless, make my father think, make my mother think that I need their help. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard. It's hard to open yourself up. It's hard to say to someone. I have this with singles all the time. The relationship doesn't develop because neither one of them wants to admit that they're one step forward because the other one has not yet admitted that they are one step forward. So I can't say that I like you, love you, whatever, because you haven't said it yet. If you haven't said it yet, what happens if I say it and you don't say it back? So meanwhile, both of them love one another. Neither of them say it. So because of the absence of that information, they assume that the relationship is not developing and they break it off. And the shame is that it wasn't love that was missing. It was courage. It was strength. Heve zanav la'arayot. Even if it's a tiny amount of strength. You know, although the tail is the least strong part of the lion, the same blood flows through it as the blood that flows through the paws of a lion, or the jaw of a lion that crushes bone and skin with 5 tons or 3 tons of pounds of pressure per square inch. It's the same blood. The strength is there. It needs to be developed. Admit it once. Either they will agree with you and say the same thing, they will support you, they will go along with your plan, or they won't. Either way, you'll emerge stronger. You know why? You know why? If they came back, if they said yes, if they gave you the result you wanted, you're emboldened because you got the result you wanted. If they did not say yes, you're still stronger because you've learned how to be able to put yourself out there without the other person responding. So Rav Matya ben Chara says, be the first to say I love you, be the first to smile, be the first to say good morning, even if you're unsure if they're going to reciprocate. Because better to be a zanav la'arayot, the least strong part of the lion, than the most cunning part of the fox. Each of these people, these singles that walks away from this, feels so cunning and smug in the fact that they successfully navigated yet another dating opportunity. And they're too stupid to realize that their cunning actually is killing them. They're so smart, but so alone. Heve zanav la'arayot v'al tehi rosh l'shu'alim. Okay, so here's the workshop. Ready? Simple question. You guys have a day, or a week, a year. Your life is, although there's variances in every single day, there are constants in our day. Let me give you an example. On Sunday, you don't take the kids to school, you don't go to the park. On Sunday, you go visit your parents or your in-laws. Monday, you might take the kids to school and you might go grocery shopping and you might go to, I don't know, Bloomingdale's. Tuesday, you might go down, to a ski class. I don't know what you're going to do, whatever you do. But every day might look different. Even though the tochen of the day looks different, there are certain bookends or elements of our day that are repetitive. The doorman is always there before you leave on your variant day. Try and find those points in the day that are repetitive, because ultimately the way we get stronger with these things is through repetition. Remember one of the signs on the wall, on the window of a gym that I used to pass by, never go in, but pass by on the way to a school that I would teach at. It says, motivation is what gets you here. Habit is what keeps you here. So you got to get motivated. Someone needs to kick you in the backside to get started. But once a person gets into the habit of being a happy person, they give out happiness. What a gift to give people. More than the $63 you're going to give them for an Xmas, because they park your car. Think about how much happiness you could give them in a day. Have you ever asked any of these guys who park your car about their kids? Showing someone beyond the niceties of society that you actually care. Huh? He's good, isn't he? You got a good one, but he got a good one too. It's a good shidduch. Yeah? You guys with me? Figuring out cornerstones of your day that you could dial up the simcha, the shalom, the giving aspect. And I hate to say this, because I think it's easier sometimes to be kinder to the doorman and to the waitress and to the parking attendant than it is to your husband, to your child, to your roommate, to your parents. How could I be nicer? So I want everyone to think for a second. And before we wrap for today, I'm going to turn off the recording. And some of you will give me some ingenious ideas, because you know what? I think we all learn from each other. Okay? So that's enough for today for the recording.